All right, hi, I'm Jessica, and I'm going to show you how to plant onions today. It is a late winter day in Texas. Usually in Texas, we want to be planting our onions about the middle to end of December, anywhere through the beginning to end of January. You can still plant after that. Your onions just may not get quite as big, and they run the chance of bolting or going to seed once our temperatures warm up. When you go to a garden center, you're going to find what are called pull-ups. They're also called onion sets. And this is where somebody has grown the seed and kind of done the hard work for you. And these are very easy. This one is a 1015. This is probably one of the easiest, best onions to be planting in Texas. And it's called 1015 because you plant them on the seed on October the 15th, a little unknown fact. So when you get these, you're going to notice that they're kind of bundled up together. And if you unbundle them, you'll start pulling through the bunches, and you want to kind of plant the bigger ones first. You can plant the other ones, but plant your bigger ones first. You can kind of sort through them. You can plant every single one as you want through there. Of course, your bigger ones are going to give you your fastest start. I wanted to talk a little bit first about how deep to plant your onions. And my hands are a little dirty because I've been doing other gardening here, but if you look at your onion, when you have the onion set like this, you want to be sure that you don't plant it too deep. So this would be too deep. That would be too shallow. You want to plant it right about the top of the neck of the onion. This one has already started to bulb. A lot of times they'll just be a little green stick. So I'm going to want to plant it right about the middle of the top. Right there is where I would plant this onion under the ground. You want to be sure that you don't plant it too shallow and too deep. Let me find a little one for you here. This is probably more akin to what you might be finding when you buy an onion set. And this may be a little harder to know where to plant that onion. So if I look at this guy here, I can see where it kind of goes from the bottom of the onion to more of the green part. And I'm going to plant it about right there is where I'm going to plant it. Or sometimes where you can see it go from sort of a yellow to sort of a green. It's really important that when you buy your onion sets that you keep the tops dry. You don't want them to get any wet. And you even keep the bottoms wet. You can miss these a little bit if you can't plant them right away. Mine have been stored in this paper sack for about 2 weeks, and you can see they're doing pretty good still. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the ground today. First thing you're going to want to do is amend your soil, and I recommend a high quality compost. Today I'm going to be using worm castings from my worm boxes, and I also am going to be amending with a good organic biologically enhanced fertilizer that has microorganisms that have been added to it. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is amend my soil before I plant my onions. I do this every time before I plant anything in my garden. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of rake any of the debris out of the way. I have some leftover little tomatoes that are hanging out in here. I also have a few leaves for my broccoli and cauliflower, so I just sort of rake that stuff out of the way here. That is great to be going and throwing on top of my compost pile. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fertilizer. This is an organic fertilizer that also has a biological micro package in it. So I'm going to be spreading this out. Sprinkle it sort of like salt and pepper. Always read your directions and kind of know your rate. And then I'm going to be putting my organic matter straight on top of this, and then I'm going to till it over and sort of rake it out. So that's what I'm going to do next, and I have my lovely helper, Aurora, here that's going to help me. Here, Aurora, you want to dump that out? We're just going to kind of pour it in a line all the way down the center here. All right, there you go, Aurora. Next thing I'm going to do is just basically work this over and turn it over. This is just a pitchfork. All I'm doing is just going about 6 to 8 inches into the soil. Watch out, Lola. Don't want you to be a casualty of gardening. You will have a few clumps in there. You can gently sort of clump those apart if you want to, but it's okay to leave them. I'm not a big fan of tilling because you slice and dice all of the nice earthworms that are in the soil. And you can see this is actually a pretty nice soil because every time I plant, I amend it. I'm also sure to rotate my crops around the garden too. All right, so Rory's pulling up some of those little weeds that are in there. And I am just simply turning this over. Watch out, sweetie, I don't want to pierce you with a pitchfork. That might hurt. So I'm just kind of breaking up any of these big clods. And then I'm going to rake this out. I like to slightly mound up my rows, which allows for good drainage. Also allows all of your nice worked soil to be kind of up at the top. You pull that little lettuce up right there. It's a rogue lettuce. Oh, look, I got them. You can feed that to your chickens if you had chickens. They would love that.
Give it to Grandma.
All right. All right, Aurora, let's get the rest of these little weeds out of here. And then we're gonna plant. I'm gonna kind of smooth this off. So you can see I'm kind of flattening the top of this out, but I still have that nice little mound. Okay, now we're ready to plant some onions. Okay, so I smoothed this out. I've amended with compost and my starting fertilizer. I have my bed sort of mounded up. I went ahead and laid my irrigation line back out because it's a lot easier to do that first and then plant versus plant and then try to work that in between your plants. So I've got my little onion plants here. What I'm gonna do, and my lovely assistant Aurora here is going to do, we're gonna do our 10-15. These are 10-15 onions. I'm gonna plant them about this way. So Aurora, why don't you take some of these and help me just kind of lay them out across the beds. And this is what I'm gonna do, just like this. So I'm gonna take my bigger ones and put them closer towards the center, spread those out. Actually, I tell you what, Aurora, you work that way and I'll work this way. So we're just laying these out all through here. Next, I'm gonna plant. So I just kind of start in the front here. And again, I don't want to plant these too deep, so on something like this, I'm going to plant it about right like that. I've got my lovely little spade here. I just kind of dig a hole and stick it in. And I can always come back and pull them up. Or if you think you got it too deep or too shallow, you can pull it up and start over. And Aurora, I think there's another one of these over underneath the shed if you want to go get it and you can help me. After this is done, you can basically come through here. You're going to water it in really well. You want to be sure that you keep the tops dry. So if you can water your onions in the morning, that would be best. You don't want the tops of your onions to be staying wet overnight. Whoops, I broke that one. If they're a little brown on top, that's not a big deal. Just plant them anyways. You'll have new green that comes out of the top of them. I like to plant them a little too deep and then I'll kind of pull them up to grade. And that really is all there is to it. Happy gardening.